percent of female teenage endurance athletes and about 15% of male teenage endurance athletes were iron deficient following an 11-week competitive season. For active people, the lack of ability to transport oxygen in the blood is not healthy and will reduce performance. These findings are specific to this study, but other studies agree. During the teenage years, girls need 15 to 18 milligrams, and boys need 11 milligrams of iron per day. And teen girls need more because of the loss of iron that occurs with menses. But spinach, most beans, steak, and fortified cereals all can easily provide enough iron. One caveat is that iron toxicity can occur anywhere around 20 milligrams per kilogram of body weight and beyond. While this isn't likely to occur from eating whole foods, it could happen if a child swallowed about 15 to 20 iron tablets in supplement form. This sounds odd, but for some children, iron supplements or multivitamins may look like candy. So always be cautious with what is available to your children. Outside of these calorie and nutrient issues for children, their hydration needs must also be considered, particularly if your child is very active. Young children end up with a higher core temperature and they sweat less than adolescents do, despite having more sweat glands per unit skin area than either adolescents or adults. One thing that is both a disadvantage and advantage for children is their large surface area per unit of body mass compared to adults. This body surface to mass ratio causes them to heat up more quickly from the environment. However, because of their high body surface to mass ratio, children also cool at a faster rate than adults. The research is actually mixed as to whether or not children are at a disadvantage in terms of regulating their body temperature, a process called thermoregulation. One landmark study had 5 prepubertal girls and 5 college-aged women exercise at a slow pace on a treadmill for 50 minutes in 3 different environmental temperatures. As the temperature increased for each trial, the young girls could not tolerate exercise for quite as long as the college-aged women. In fact, at all environmental temperatures, the girls had higher heart rates and higher temperatures than the women. This likely had to do again with the body surface area to weight ratio that I discussed. And drinking water or even diluted sports drinks is a good idea, especially during vigorous exercise and outside in warm weather. On the other end of the spectrum are nutrition and exercise changes that occur as we age. In general, there is a lack of understanding by people that their nutritional needs change as they age. You may be surprised to learn that the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, has found an overall decline in the diet quality of Americans over age 65. The World Health Organization, or WHO, also reports alarming rates of obesity worldwide for all of us, including those over 65 years old. And this correlates with the American data. While there is no magic drink, potion, or pill for aging, we do know that proper nutrition and exercise are vital for increasing longevity and improving quality of life as you age. It is not uncommon for exercise to slow down or become non-existent as we grow older. In fact, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, has reported that only about 28 to 34% of adults ages 65 to 74 are physically active. The WHO recommends at least 150 minutes of activity, but says that for real benefits, it's best to exercise roughly 300 minutes per week. That comes out to 1 hour per day, 5 days per week. This should be a mix of moderate and vigorous exercise. If you don't exercise now, that shouldn't stop you. Start. You can add fitness, muscle, and strength at any age. Now keep in mind that there are plenty of examples where older individuals who are not only active, but are athletes. For example, at age 84, Lou Hollander completed an Ironman distance triathlon, which is 2.2 miles of swimming, 112 miles of biking, and 26.2 miles of running. There is also research evidence to show that muscle quality and quantity remains excellent if physical activity is consistently part of your daily routine. In addition, it's important to eat properly, to not only fuel for a healthy life, but to help with physical activity, to reduce fatigue, and to maintain or build muscle mass. As you'll recall, protein intake for aging people is extremely important. According to the research on protein needs of older people, protein intake should be almost double compared to the recommended amounts of 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram per day, or 0.36 grams per pound of body weight per day. This is due to the fact that as we age, we are challenged by anabolic resistance, where we grow resistant to the growth-promoting properties of protein. Anabolic resistance develops as early as roughly age 40, give or take a few years. It is important to also include resistance training or weightlifting in your exercise plan in order to maintain or improve muscle mass, the very thing that keeps you moving and healthy. So, aiming for about 30 to 40 grams of protein each time you eat may be optimal to improve muscle mass and defend against any age-related decline in muscle mass. It should equal out over an entire day to just less than 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 160 pounds, you would aim for protein intake somewhere between 115 and 160 grams, which you can get from lean meat, dairy products, protein powders, or proper combinations of plant foods. You want to combine this nutrition strategy with resistance training. Research that looked at 3 months of resistance training and protein intake in over 100 people between 50 and 80 years old concluded that higher protein intake led to the best improvements in muscle mass. To fight off sarcopenia, or the age-related decline in muscle mass that affects nearly 50% of men and 60% of women ages 60 to 69 years old, you have to lift weights and eat enough calories and protein. And because hunger can decrease with age, it is also important to just be aware of your total calorie intake. Now, 2 other nutrient considerations to pay attention to as you age are vitamin D and calcium. To help maintain bone mass and prevent the loss of bone, where something called bone resorption exceeds bone formation, it is a good idea to eat calcium-containing foods like dairy products, green leafy vegetables, and fruit. Or you can simply use a calcium supplement. The average intake of calcium in older populations is between 650 and 800 milligrams per day, but it should be 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams per day. And omnivores can get the recommended amount by combining multiple food sources throughout the day. For example, 1 cup of milk, 1 packet of oatmeal, 1 cup of yogurt, and a 6-ounce portion of salmon would be good. For plant eaters, you might try a glass of orange juice fortified with calcium and other foods like an ounce of almonds, 4 ounces of tofu, half a cup of soybeans, and a slice of calcium-fortified bread. It is pretty easy, but you can also use a calcium supplement. And calcium supplements are available in 2 forms. These are calcium carbonate and calcium citrate. calcium carbonate is designed for people with ample stomach acid, typically younger individuals. But as we age, the production of stomach acid can also decline. So for older people, using calcium citrate, which is naturally a little acidic, will help with the absorption of calcium. About 90% of men and women over age 51 do not meet the recommended vitamin D intake of 600 to 800 international units. So you should make an effort to get some sun exposure or supplement with vitamin D to make sure you have enough to meet your needs. Lastly, dehydration is also a concern in older individuals. Usually, your kidneys respond to changes in blood volume and salt concentration by producing a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. This hormone does what it sounds like. It stops or slows diuresis, or the production of urine, to conserve water. In older people, even though ADH is produced, it turns out that there are fewer nephrons, or active components of the kidney, for the ADH to act upon, and the nephrons are just less responsive in general. Dehydration can also be an issue because older individuals have a decrease in thirst sensation. So even when dehydrated, older people just do not respond with the same level of thirst as a younger person. You can easily see that a lower perceived level of thirst would probably lead to less fluid intake and just exacerbate dehydration. Between the reduced ability to respond to dehydration and a reduction in thirst, older people can have a major issue with regulating body water content. A key message is that in older people, if you don't have the urge to